well, thank you both for meeting with me to talk about Greywood's plot.
Yeah,
I loved it. Um,
Thank you.
awesome.
just wanted to put that
Thanks.
out there. Um,
Right on.
but I was looking both of you up on IMDb, and it looks like you've worked a lot together a lot. And I was just wondering, how long have you known each other, and when did this relationship kind of this working relationship kind of form?
It started as a working relationship when we were six years old. We met in kindergarten. So um we met in kindergarten, and we started, stealing our dad's video cameras and shooting little kid movies together. And then from there both went to high school together. We went to a private high school, lived in a dorm together, and we would just film the antics there. And we liked making movies so much that it turned into making weird pictures together.
Nice. Um, so what's it like taking your career from childhood up through present day and kind of like honing your craft together? What was that like?
Crazy. It's been interesting. It wasn't like Josh said, we've been doing this since we were kids, but it's kind of come in waves. We did your typical started a band in high school, then we did then YouTube came out and we started doing like comedy sketch video stuff. And we and Josh went to college for animation, so he's done a lot of animation work. And then we kind of fell into feature films sort of backwards. But it's just been a heck of a ride, so we just kept on doing it.
That's awesome. So you both co-wrote Greywood's plot. Where did the story come from?
Yeah, we really so I turned 30 years old. I had kids, I had a mortgage, I was married. I had done like a lot of the bucket list stuff, and I realized that like the only thing that was actually on my bucket list was to make a movie. Like I always wanted to make a movie ever since I was a kid. And so for my 31st birthday, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
I convinced my wife to let me take, instead of like birthday party or birthday presents, I was like, I'm going to go in the woods with three other dudes and make a movie. So Daniel, Strauss, Keith, and I went to the woods of northern Minnesota, and we just started filming. I had written out like these 40 note cards of what I wanted to happen. And I've always wanted to do a project where Daniel plays like a mad scientist. So I had this concept. And I also love like movies where people get turned into other things, like The Fly, Island of Dr. Moreau. Like I'm a huge fan of that type of movie. Even like The Metamorphosis when I was a kid in high school. I love that book, or that story. So um I had this concept where Daniel was going to turn me into a monster, and we were just going to film it. So we started filming off of these note cards and kind of failed miserably. And then through a series of events, we ended up on Robert Rodriguez's reality show, Rebel Without a Crew. And we made our first feature film on that called The Good Exorcist. It's sort of a comedy, sort of like The Exorcist meets Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And so I've never said that before, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
um, but so we, after we finished making that movie, I was like, man, we should go back and try Greywood's plot again, but do it more like how we did The Good Exorcist. I'll write a script, we'll figure it out. So I wrote a script, and then I sent it to Daniel, and he read it and he tweaked it and, went like, why are we doing a killer hobo in the woods animation? And I was like, trust me, we got to do this thing. And we put it all together and just sort of ran with it. And it took us, man, like a year of filming off and on, or 6 months of filming off and on, and then another 6 months of editing and cleaning it up and fixing it. And then we eventually put together this weird movie together.
Nice. So you went into this process knowing that you both were going to act in it as well.
Yeah, sort of based on necessity. We just,
Mhm.
I don't like to, because I work in the industry as an animator and an editor. I really hate asking people for favors. I like to pay people, and we just didn't have a budget. So instead, I'm not afraid to ask my good friends for favors. Keith and I, who plays the other lead in the movie opposite me, I've known him since I was 13 days old. I met him in my parents brought me to the hospital when he was born, and I was 13 days old. So we've known each other our entire lives. And then Daniel came around late in the game in kindergarten, and then
Right.
Strauss, who is he was my AD in the movie. He plays the Fly Man, or Igor, in the movie. He we Daniel met him a handful of years ago, and
Yeah.
he's sort of become my right hand man, and made the Dog Man costume. Found out how to do that on YouTube. We did everything super cheap. Um, but yeah, did I answer the question? I don't remember what the question was.
You
Yes, you
nailed it.
did. I don't know what I answered. I was invested in what you were saying. I was like, I don't remember what I asked.
Nailed it. Woo.
So you mentioned the animation portion. Was that out of necessity too? Like, why incorporate the animation?
In this one, in The Good Exorcist, it was out of necessity. I'd put
Yeah.
animation in The Good Exorcist because my concept was, if I wasn't able to finish some stuff based on the restrictions of, I mean, I knew I was going on a reality show. The first thing you think of is like they're going to try to throw in things to get in your way, and it's going to be a challenge. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write animation into this so I can get away with showing animation whenever I need to. And then I just liked having animation in it so much that I went, you know what, let's write an animated sequence or two into this one as well. So when I wrote the dream sequence for Miles' character, I was just like, I gotta have some cartoons in the background. That's truly what I believe Keith dreams like. So I wrote that part. The first dream is based on like a real dream that I had, and I was like, I'm gonna put that in there. And then the second dream, I was like, I just got to show what I feel like Keith thinks about at night. And then the animated killer hobo animation was just, I just Daniel, when
Pure
Daniel and I,
necessity.
yeah, when Daniel and I write, we often try to shock each other, and I think I wrote that one going like, what do you think? I wonder what Daniel's gonna think of this. What did you think of it, Dan?
Yeah.
It was all right. No, it was good. It was good. It's
Excellent.
good. It's good. I think we should keep it in the movie. It can stay. It can stay.
Nice. It was definitely unexpected on my part.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I kept it and it always kind of stayed is because the movie takes such a weird turn after that point that I feel like it helped ease the audience into this concept that anything can happen in this movie. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of put that in there.
Nice. The film was just it was just visually, like, I don't want to say visually stunning because like I don't even know what that means. Um, but some of like the angles that you used and just being in black and white, it was really nice to see. So what went into making those choices? Or was that something that you wanted from the start?
Yeah, that was, I mean, we we started shooting in color, and we had a handful of footage, and Josh, being the editor, started putting it together. And he showed some to me, and he's like, if I turn this black and white, it kind of has this universal monster, like old school 50s horror thing going. And I loved it. And I'm like, yeah, let's run with that. Let's see what that's like. And we were able to make that decision so early on that it informed everything afterwards. We our monitor was in black and white, so every shot we framed, we could do it for black and white. And we shot a lot of the wooded areas in Josh's sister's backyard, but we did so like to kind of make it look like a soundstage. Like, we wanted it to kind of feel real but also a little unreal. And so we would, like, have our friend Nate put lights behind the trees to create these outlines. And yeah, we just ran with it. We're like, if we're going to do like a 1950s creature feature but have it in the modern era, like, we're just going to own it. And so yeah. And Josh, you know I'm always a fan of his film work in general because he really moves the camera like constantly. And I feel like that's something that really does make, elevate an indie film. And so we all took turns behind the camera and we kind of just followed his lead, like, constantly moving, keeping the audience engaged. And yeah, that was that's what we did.
And I think growing up in animation, because that's what I went to school for, was animation, I really learned how to layer things and not make a shot just like, a lot of independent movies that have no budget. They end up like just setting up a camera on sticks and filming against a wall, and there's not really a whole lot happening. I've seen some fantastic movies that I'm always like, oh, if you just put a picture behind them, this would pop so much more. If you just filmed on the third instead of being flat here, there's like something that you can add to it. And I try to keep every shot different. Like, I don't want to just be repetitive. So sometimes I'll film a shot very wide and flat, almost like a cartoon. And then I'll be like, okay, now let's do something like really, really close up, and let's have the lights almost like glowing behind you and highlighting you in a very obnoxious but fun way. So there's a lot of like thinking about the emotion of what we want to show and trying to make it. And here's the truth. I learned early on that one of the reasons why I loved filming and hanging out with Daniel is because he's like massively tall and I'm very, very small. And so I could get these like epic angles. And I learned early on like how to make people look cool on camera and how to make shots look interesting, just based on accidentally seeing like, oh, if I shoot Daniel, he looks like an action star right here. And, when we were 6 years old. So yeah, I think, the visuals were really important. And because we didn't have a big budget, it was always like, how can we make this shot visually interesting so the audience isn't going like they have no budget?
Yeah, and we knew that a big chunk of the middle of the film is in the woods, and so we're like, the last thing we want to do is bore people with
Yeah.
the same shot of them in the woods. So we knew we had an uphill battle there too, and I hope we pulled it off. I think we did.
Yeah, to be clear, the woods that he's talking about, we made it look like a giant plot of land. It was like, 2 acres in my sister's backyard. Like, it was not a huge piece of land. It was a pretty small spot, but we just moved stuff around. There were moments where we were like, tearing down trees from one, or like moving a busted tree from one spot and putting it on a tree in a different way so that it would look like a different area. But I think we kind of get away with it because we just got kind of clever with what we were doing and how we were filming it.
Definitely. I thought that you were literally in the middle of nowhere with it. So definitely from my perspective, you nailed it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Speaking of budget, with all of the gore and the effects with that, all of that had to be practical, right?
There's a lot of practical stuff, but there's a lot of, I purposely wrote for effects I knew I could do. And so, like, I knew if I always wanted to do like a living forest sequence. So that's why that's in the movie. This weird living forest where Doug is like harvesting body parts and whatnot is the concept. But I knew that with After Effects, if I put someone in a tree, I could mask out their body if I just got a plate. So if I filmed them not there and then filmed them there, I could, remove parts of them and have them hanging off of it and put vines up their arms in After Effects. And then, to like blend those digital effects with the real effects, we actually filmed that scene on my birthday. And I invited like a whole bunch of people over, and I'm like, instead of bringing presents, instead of bringing food or booze, everyone go buy themselves zombie makeup and make yourself up like a zombie, and I'll put you in the movie. So we had them dress up like a zombie still, like the eye removal on, there's like a girl in a tree who doesn't have any eyes. She did that makeup herself. And then I just digitally like put this nasty vines growing up her. And it's really weird. If you look closely, there's like spider legs in the background. I took like images of spiders and like had them digitally twitching in the background. I don't know why spiders. I just thought it was creepy, and it's so hard to see that I think it's just like an unnerving background thing. But like Strauss, who's like my AD on the movie and a good friend of ours, he made the cowl, the monster that I become in the movie. He made that himself, learning how to do it on YouTube, and just buying the bare minimum amount of stuff he could find online to do that. And then we did a face cast of me in my kitchen while my kids ran around filming the sequence, because I was like, if I'm gonna suffocate and die in my kitchen, I want proof of it when we mess this up. I did not. I survived, and and then Strauss made the mask, and it came out great. And so a lot of it was practical, but we found ways to do some fun digital stuff. And I think one of the things that I learned early on I could do to elevate a movie or elevate this no budget movie is add small effects. So throughout the whole movie, I added like dust particles and weird little lighting ticks and things like that weren't actually practical, but it added a little depth to the movie that makes it look a little bit better than I think it maybe did without it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope, because it was a lot of work.
It was really, really cool to see all of that, and just to see like the extent that you went to incorporate all that. I want to go back to the dialogue just a little bit. I really liked how you juxtaposed the horror with the comedy, while also having these like deeper moments. The "Aren't you tired" moment specifically, I was just like, ouch.
Yeah.
Like I understand. But what was it like kind of incorporating all of that with all of the other layers that you were working with?
It was fun because I think Dan and I, when we initially went in to do it, we didn't have a script, and we kind of made a lot of stuff up on the fly. And I think we were both young dads at the time. Now we're kind of becoming old dads, but the father thing is kind of old hat. But at that point, we were still just getting used to it, and I think there was an element of like being tired. Are we going to continue making movies together? Is this going to be a thing? So there was like an actual emotional element to it, but there's also the fact that on set we just try to make each other laugh all the time, so we write dialogue that we think is funny as well.
Yeah, I think we could, obviously, knowing each other for basically our whole lives, we had a lot of actual life experience to pull from. And and kudos to Keith, who delivered the line. I didn't know he had it in him. Like, he blew us away every time with every take. And that's one of my favorites too, because he just nails the performance in a way that I didn't even anticipate while writing it. But yeah, I mean, it really does, all of it comes from just stuff we would say or BS about, and then stuff we think about, like, especially starting the feature film thing now, when we kind of put it on a shelf, I'm like, is this the right thing? Are we too tired? Are we getting too old for this? So yeah, no, it's just, we just wanted to bring all of us into the movie, and all of the things we love, all the influences in film and in genre film and horror and comedy, and just made this messed up monster film.
Yeah, I like that. I'm really happy you brought that line up, because that was one that Keith is not an actor. He's just a friend of ours who goes along with our crazy shenanigans, and usually is, like just waiting to be done so he can actually go back to playing video games or doing whatever Keith does. And he came to set that day. I'm like, man, you gotta like bring it today. Do you actually know your lines? And it was just Keith and I on set that day filming it. The two of us, that was it. And he's like, no, I think I know the lines. I think I got it. And I'm like, do you really? It's a big chunk. We'll cut it up. So if you screw up, just read your lines, do it again. He's like, no, I think I got it. And then that was like his first take. He did the whole thing perfectly. And I sat there and I'm like, oh my God, Keith, where did that come from? And then I looked at him. I'm like, oh, you just are talking to me. I get it.
Yeah,
I see where this is. Yeah.
Nice. My final question before I let you go, kind of keeping in line with the dialogue, I loved the "Is Bigfoot a pet?" dialogue as well. So I was wondering where you both stood on that.
Where do I stand on that? That was a fun one, because that was actually that was actually an improv line between Keith and I. We made that up kind of like on the fly, and then the first time we filmed, and then we went back and kind of rewrote it and tweaked it or whatever. But that like came out of just us talking. I think man, I don't know if
I'm Team Keith. He's sentient. He's got feelings. You can't just, you know, he can be your friend. He can be your best friend. He can be your roommate, but he can't be your pet. Come on.
I think I have to agree with that. Like I barely consider my dog a pet. I treat her like a human. So I really don't know if I don't know if I could trap Bigfoot in my house. And he is sentient. He's out there.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Living his life. Yeah.
Living his life.
Nice.
So you were acting. You were acting. You would.
I was acting. That's a performance, Dan. A performance.
Wow.
Definitely one of the highlights of the film. All right, great. Thank you both for chatting with me.
Yeah.
Like I loved the movie, and
awesome.
I'm looking forward to what you do next.
Thank you. Yeah.
We appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It was a great time.
This is awesome.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Dan.
Bye, Josh.